creators, you better start working on getting in AI or keeping anything you want off the internet because there are very few countries standing up. Of all the companies you would think would be able to stop AI from taking their content, it's Getty Images. This company takes its IP very seriously. Well, what did the judge see that we didn't see? Take a look at what's going on with what's coming out of stability from Getty Images.
Getty Images, in my opinion, actually had its brand taken by AI. They are known to be very adamant about their content. Anything they have, you are not allowed to use without paying them. And they have very smart attorneys and bots and emails. And just look back. There's like a wayback machine on how long this has gone on. So to go out and strip those initially, first, big mistake. But what they do is, as you look, and you can see on your screen, I'm showing you some examples that have been output, according to the legal documents from Getty, by Stability. And it shows their brand name, and it's on this like black banner. It has Getty Images, often with the photographer. This is how they do their watermark on top of their images. Now, what's really crazy, their watermark, if you look at the valuation of the current Getty Images, which just merged with Shutterstock in January 2025, it's around $3.5 billion. So let's say that's what the brand's value is, because this is a brand value. That Getty Images is not only being put on images that, let's say, may assumedly have been scraped from Getty Images, which does look like it's happened, but images can be very similar in photography. But still, this Getty Images, and not only that, it shows up on images that aren't Getty Images because, well, if you have a black Getty image across all these images that's consistent and it starts popping up, you're now taking the brand, not only the image, but the brand, and putting it on, which is why this case probably has the highest ceiling of all of them, in my opinion, because this is actually a name that's not only put on work, but inferior work and weird work. Of course, they're showing the horrible examples, but it's clear the scraping was done. And you can't hide when your brand name keeps popping up in all the results. It's like you don't even have to prove it. When you follow the money trail with Getty Images, you clearly see that the impact on brand value could be huge if you started having these things generated. And odd thing about all these cases is the New York Times, Getty, all of this happened a few years ago, which is very different than now.
See what you see there? From Getty Images is their actual logo. And as I said, that's their brand. That might be worth billions, printed out over photos that they had. But the UK judge said, you know what? It's fair use because, just like with my book, when this book gets turned into little pieces called tokens, that's what AI does. It breaks into a lot of little pieces, into words. Now, that's not this book. That's a bunch of little pieces. And that's not just the way the judge in the UK saw it, finding in favor of Stability, but it really laid something down that it's almost impossible to protect your work because all the judges that I've been looking at in these many cases over the past 2 years, they all tend to say, hey, if it's on the internet, if it was brought in, if somebody put it out there, it's fair use. Yes, there was a case in Germany where they found music lyrics were taken, but that case is based only in Germany. And here's the deal with AI. It's all over the world. One country's rules can't replace another country's rules. And in AI, here's the deal. You got content, it's been taken. It's been 6 years at least since this stuff was taken from the internet. And now we're finding out that the judges, after looking at it, haven't made a final decision, but it's not looking good. So if you're Getty Images and you can't even protect your work with your brand over photos you've created, how much do you stand? So the takeaway here is, creators, I don't like it. Look into licensing. But if these judges find that all the courts can give permission to take that content into AI because, just like the judge said, hey, if I read a book and I turn it into something, that's an influence. Of course, AI can do that 1,000, a million times more, but that doesn't seem to matter. So the big Getty Images case blew apart protection. We're like China now. What's really interesting that's happening with AI is that there's this big deal, at least from the US perspective, to not let China beat us. So what do? You become China. China's been known historically not to protect US copyrights or even copyrights in general unless that book has significant social or impact on the country of China. Meaning, if it makes a lot of money, just like in the US and the West, if you have a lot of lawyers, you can get some payment, you can get some licensing dollars. But we've decided to become like China and say everything else, if you're not making money, it's fair use. So content creators, you want to really hide your stuff behind paywalls, behind passwords. And if you're putting it out there, your job should be to get into AI doing AEO, answer engine optimization, or GEO, generative engine optimization, whatever you want to call it. It's the new search engine stuff. But it doesn't look like the courts are there to back us. AI is allowed to take any content that we can have, put it in there, even copyrighted content, according to many judges so far. And yes, we're not at the end of this, but you got to start looking at the patterns. There is not a single judge, and I've looked at 10 cases at least, who has stood up and said, I see that by bringing in the content and breaking it into these little things called tokens, that means there's not storing a physical copy of a book, because that's what copyright's based on. One unchanging creative painting book. It's based on something being static. And of course, AI takes in the words, stretches them all out, makes associations, so your product, your book actually is not in there. In fact, in my research, when I've looked at it, estimates are you might, if you worked really hard, get maybe 25% of a book that they scraped out of AI. Now, I don't know if that's true, but try it. You cannot just say, give me that book. That's the core of copyright. And that's the weakness of copyright that has no application to what we're doing. So while they can take our content, I want you to remember that the kind of ChatGPT that relies on taking other people's content is also challenged by many other AIs. Yann LeCun, who's been Meta's AI scientist, is now leaving to create a startup where they can take in information, not like ChatGPT, which gets all this words and images and videos, but it actually observes, it learns, it does what sort of we do as a human. We look out through our eyes and we learn, we bring things in. And start realizing that AI is way more than ChatGPT, despite what the headlines say.
The Getty's image case provides the actual easiest, most visual evidence. There's Getty's logo right on top, even sometimes with the photographer's name right below it, with weird images that have distorted faces and glitches and hallucinations, which of course implies that their brand is associated with that. This is even better than scraping. When your brand gets associated with something negative, it's not good for you, but it's extremely good for you in court, in my opinion, because there's nothing stronger than brand in companies of Getty Images' size. That's the alleged taking, even more than the content, is the brand. And that could impact this at a level that is, I think, much higher than the other claims can be, but who knows? These economic realities, not abstract technical or legal principles, are going to define it because we don't have the law. The tech is brand new. So how else are we going to define it except for where the money trail goes? This is when AI becomes business. As much as it's easy to say to all you startups, keep going, if your startup is going to go, it's going to go. And if it goes because it bought data, or this whole issue really impacts the bigger players that everyone's wrapping around, it would be thermonuclear. And I don't think it will be that. But how do we actually correct what is obviously a wrong?